I trusted Fiancée to protect her. But when he begged me to block her number, then played a secret recording of her private words, our wedding plans collapsed in an instant. How can one act of loyalty ignite such a devastating betrayal? I still remember the exact moment my phone buzzed with that fateful message, "Please block her number." It was late Friday afternoon, and I'd been wrapping up work looking forward to a quiet weekend. When I saw his name on the screen, my longtime friend, the man whose fiancée I'd grown to respect, I felt a jolt of unease. He didn't say why. He didn't ask how I was, or if I had a minute to talk. He only typed "block her number." I can't explain, but please just do it. My heart sank. Blocking someone's number is a serious step, a sign that communication has broken down completely. I tapped back, "Are you okay? What's going on?" But there was no reply. Instead, he followed up with a second text, "I'm sorry. Please trust me." And then silence. Trusting him wasn't difficult. He'd been that steadfast pillar of loyalty I'd counted on, through job losses, family crises, and my own mistakes. Yet the urgency in his plea rattled me. I found her contact in my phone's settings and hit block. The moment her name disappeared from my recent calls list, I felt a rush of guilt mixed with relief, as though I'd both helped a friend and closed a door I couldn't yet see through. I spent the drive home replaying his request over and over my mind, racing to piece together a scenario that made sense. Had they fought? Was she the one who cheated and he was desperate to keep her from lashing out at him? Or was he in danger hiding from someone she'd become? Each potential answer was darker than the last. I stopped at a red light and stared out at the empty street, willing him to call, to text again, to share at least a hint of context. But his line stayed quiet. Minutes turned into hours, and every buzz of my phone made me jump. When my car's Bluetooth finally connected to the home Wi-Fi, I sat in silence, checking for a single notification. A small voice in my head whispered, "You did the right thing." But another louder voice cried, "What have you done?" By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had slipped behind the trees, and I realized that my simple act of blocking her number was now the hinge on which their future might swing toward reconciliation or total collapse. All I knew was that I'd crossed a line in someone else's story, and there was no turning back. That evening, I climbed into my car and fired up Android Auto, still feeling the weight of his desperate text in my pocket. As the screen lit up, the recent calls list scrolled itself before my eyes, and there she was, her number flashing over and over in a relentless loop. Point 1. Even though I'd blocked her on my phone, a weird glitch in Android Auto showed every attempt she made to reach me as missed calls on my dashboard. Dozens of them piled up, so many that the app overflowed and refused to show the rest. Mini hook. Every missed call felt like a silent scream echoing through the car's speakers. Point 2. With each redlined icon blinking at me, my pulse quickened. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Was she frantic for him, desperate to explain herself? Or was she the wounded party, unaware that her fiancé had cut her off? I parked under a street lamp and stared at those missed calls as if they held the answer. But all they revealed was her fear and his silence. Even though my actual phone never rang or vibrated, the car's display made it impossible to ignore her attempts. It was as though technology itself was demanding I witness her panic. Point 3. I wrestled with what to do next. I could unblock her and face an avalanche of truth, or keep her blocked and risk cementing the rift between them. As I sat there, engine idling, I realized that blocking her number had seemed a small kindness to my friend, but seeing her calls piling up like unread letters in a mailbox shattered that illusion. In that glow of streetlight, I understood that one person's attempt at protection can become another's source of anguish. I felt the edges of loyalty fray, loyalty to my friend's request versus empathy for her unheard voice. With a sigh, I started the engine and drove on, leaving those red digits behind like footprints fading on wet pavement. In the rearview mirror, I wondered whether silence would heal or harm, and whether the truth she was trying to voice would ever reach the ears it needed most. And as each missed call stayed stubbornly on the screen, I knew this glitch wasn't just a technical glitch. It was a mirror reflecting the cost of secrets, and a warning that refusing to answer a call can sometimes ignite a crisis far louder than any ring. That evening, just as I was replaying the Android Auto glitch in my mind, my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my friend's best man, a voice thick with concern. "You need to see this," he said, and before I could ask why, he sent me a screenshot of his fiancée's Facebook post, a status update declaring, "Single and free, at last, goodbye to lies and hello to the real me." Point 1. Seeing her words laid bare in digital ink felt like a punch to the gut. Those 3 words, single and free, shattered the picture of a wedding just weeks away and transformed our supportive chat into a scene of emotional carnage. Point 2. The best man's own confusion mirrored my own, as he explained that she'd publicly announced her new status mere hours after my friend pleaded for her number to be blocked. He hadn't known what to make of it, neither did I. Yet forwarding me, that screenshot was his desperate attempt to sift truth from rumor. Mini hook. Her post read like a final heartbreak memo. Point 3. The timing was cruelly perfect. Here we were, on the brink of his happiest moment, his fiancée's shower, the final guest list, confirmations. Yet she was publicly declaring her freedom, painting the engagement as a lie. I stared at the post's timestamp, noting how the world could now see her pain in full color, while my friend's phone stayed stubbornly silent. In that moment, I realized the depth of her anguish and the scale of his betrayal. My simple act of blocking her number had snowballed into a public spectacle that neither of them could control. I tried calling my friend, but he didn't answer, and the realization settled in that our roles had reversed. He who once confided every joy and sorrow now hid behind silence, while she, the wrong party, broadcast her heartbreak to an audience of acquaintances. As I sat there, the soft glow of my phone illuminating the screenshot's harsh truth, I felt the weight of responsibility as a mutual friend. Should I step in, offer comfort, relay his side? Or would any word I spoke fuel the fire? The stakes felt impossibly high, not just a wedding on the brink, but two people I cared for deeply, each wounded by secrets and silence. And as the night deepened, I knew the next steps I took would echo far beyond that fateful Facebook post. I still remember sitting in his dimly lit living room the night he first confessed to what he'd done. He'd recorded her voice without her knowledge, an act he'd told himself was justified by his love for their son. Point 1, he wanted to capture her honest feelings about the little boy they had created, to hear her say, unfiltered, that he was adorable, and sweet words that might reassure a father's anxious heart. He insisted his motive was pure. I just needed to know she really cares, he'd whispered, eyes damp with worry. Point 2. Yet. In that moment, the boundary between protection and invasion shattered. He'd pressed record on his phone as she spoke privately, believing the end's peace of mind justified the means. I felt a pang of alarm when he admitted it, realizing that consent had slipped through his fingertips, the way a raindrop slips through a cracked window. Mini hook. His love for our son drove him to betray her trust. Point 3. When he finally played the recording back for her, the betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. Her eyes, once soft with affection, hardened in horror as her own voice echoed in the room, laughing, marveling at their child, only to be met with a silent, indifferent replay. She asked, her voice trembling, "Where did you get this?" And his refusal to name me thrust me into the role of co-conspirator. The intimacy of her words, now laid bare without her permission, became the wedge that split their future apart. I remember the hush that followed, broken only by the tremor in her question. "Why didn't you tell me?" Story spotlight as she reached for the phone, likely to erase it. I saw the moment hope cracked in two. He stood firm. It shouldn't matter who recorded it, but in his stubbornness, he sealed the fate of their engagement. Their wedding, once a celebration of familial love, unraveled in that room thread by thread, until only the raw edges of mistrust remained. And in the aftermath, I realized that sometimes the very acts meant to protect can become the instrument of destruction for trust. Once broken in the name of love, can be the hardest thing to rebuild. She slammed the phone down like a thunderclap against the coffee table, eyes blazing, as she stared at my friend, her fiancé, who sat frozen beside me. Point 1. The betrayal cut deeper than the secret recording itself. It was the way he'd hidden his actions from her, weaponizing her own words as though privacy were a luxury he could live without. "How dare you!" she spat, voice trembling between rage and hurt. "You recorded me talking about our son without telling me, without even asking." Her hands shook as she gestured wildly, the room spinning with the force of her fury. Every syllable rang with disbelief. "You lied to me for days, pretended nothing was wrong, then played back my voice like I was some specimen under a microscope." Point 2. Her trust, painstakingly built over months of wedding planning and shared dreams, evaporated in that moment. She paced the length of the living room, palms pressed against her temples, reliving each inflection of her words, now forever tainted by his deceit. I watched her struggle, tears slipping down her cheeks, even as her anger pushed her forward. "I can't believe you thought this was okay. You crossed a line, a sacred line. No child's welfare justifies stealing my private thoughts." Her fists clenched at her sides as she turned to me, eyes narrowing. "And you," she accused softly. "You let him do it. You blocked my number. You're complicit in this." Point 3. The final blow came as she rounded on him, voice low and deadly calm. "I don't know who I was engaged to anymore," she whispered, each word a sharpened blade. "A man who respects me and our relationship, or a stranger who sees me as a means to an end." She sank to the floor, shoulders heaving, and refused his outstretched hand. He tried to apologize, stammered, begged for understanding, but she shook her head resolutely. "I can't trust you," she repeated, And I won't marry a man whose love is so fragile that it breaks at the first sign of insecurity. In that charged silence, I realized the power of her fury wasn't just in what she said, but in the finality of her resolve. She gathered her wedding ring from the table, its gold band gleaming mockingly under the lamp's light, and placed it before him like a judge's gavel. Without another word, she walked to the door and left her departure echoing with the crash of shattered promises. And as the front door clicked shut, the three of us were left amidst the wreckage of what could have been, reminded that when trust is broken in the name of protection, it can become the fiercest form of betrayal. The next morning, the wedding planner called, with a trembling voice, "I'm so sorry she won't be there." Point 1. Months of meticulous plans. Venue holds flower arrangements, the seating chart I'd helped organize collapsed overnight. I sat at my friend's kitchen table, empty champagne flutes still chilling in an ice bucket, staring at the invitation suite we'd once mailed out together. Mini hook. One phone call erased months of dreams. Point 2. The families awoke to chaos. Her parents wept into each other's arms, mourning the daughter who had brimmed with excitement just 24 hours earlier. His parents paced the hallway, disbelief etched on their faces as they replayed the fiancé's fury in that living room. I watched him cradle his head in his hands, grief and regret warring on his face. Their worlds knitting families together by the promise of "I do" had fractured into separate corners of blame and heartbreak. Point 3. We went from dress fittings to packing boxes. Bridesmaids' gowns hung limply on hangers, groomsmen's tuxes peeked out of garment bags already being collected by the rental service. The florist's delivery truck arrived with peonies destined for centerpieces. Instead, we sent them back petals drifting to the grass like confetti of a celebration that never came. Around us, friends who once toasted our future now offered awkward hugs, their congratulations cut short by averted eyes. As I helped him box up the cake topper, two intertwined hearts of porcelain, I realized that a wedding isn't just a party. It's the physical manifestation of two lives weaving into one. And now, those threads lay severed on the floor. The limo company called to ask why their vehicles weren't needed. The DJ left voicemails wondering if it was a prank. Even the caterer's cold-plated samples seemed to mourn the menu that would never feed a dance floor. In that stunned silence, I understood that weddings canceled in this way aren't just about one couple's pain. They rip through the fabric of every friend and family member who believed in the story of happily ever after. And as we locked the empty halls for the final time, it struck me love can be fragile, and when it shatters, it leaves behind echoes of what could have been, haunting reminders that the promise of "I do" carries the weight of everything we dare to hope for. I've found myself stranded in the crossfire of a friendship I never imagined could fracture, torn between the man who asked me to protect him and the woman whose voice I helped betray. Point 1. On one hand, there's my friend the groom, who confided in me with desperation, begging me to block his fiancée's number, so I'd stand in as guardian of his peace. I remember late-night texts filled with worry for his son and sorrow for his bride, and I felt compelled to help him find clarity. His heartbreak was as real to me as if I'd lost something of my own, and I understood his fear that a moment of insecurity might cost him everything he'd built. Mini hook. I became the fuse in their explosive fallout. Point 2. On the other hand, there's the fiancée who poured out her heart in that secret recording, believing in the safety of private words, only to have them weaponized against her. Her fury, raw and justified, cut deeper than any knife because I'd played a part in her unmasking, and I couldn't bear to see her world crumble as I'd witnessed my groom's. I sat through her tears-slammed walls and piercing accusations, and my heart ached for her sense of violation. Point 3. As the fallout reverberated, friends and family looked to me for answers. Should I stand by the man who trusted me to help him, or the woman whose privacy I'd violated? Navigating social circles felt like walking a tightrope above a canyon of judgment. Mutual friends fell silent or took sides. Every group chat gleamed with gossip. Every party invitation became a test of loyalty. I agonized over whether to mediate or step back, knowing either choice risked betraying someone I cared deeply about. In stolen moments, I drafted messages. "I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" But fear held me back, the weight of their pain pressing down. Story spotlight. One evening, I found them both staring out, separate windows in my living room, shoulders hunched, eyes distant, and I realized no words could span the gulf between them until they faced each other directly. And so, here I stand carrying the burden of their secrets, praying that time and truth will guide them back to who they once were. Separate souls, bound by love, not torn apart by the loyalties they asked me to keep. I've always believed that looking out for the people we care about is the highest form of love, but I learned the hard way that when protection turns to spying, we crush the very trust we're trying to keep alive. When he recorded her private words, her gentle praise of their son, without her knowing, the act felt justified in his mind by paternal worry, yet felt like a brutal betrayal to her heart. In that moment, their laughter became a weapon, and her voice, once a tender comfort, echoed back at her as a proof that he didn't trust her. I sat in their living room, watching the color drain from her face as she realized her privacy had been violated, and I felt the weight of my own complicity for having helped block her number at his request. Good intentions, I discovered, are no excuse for breaking someone's confidence. He told himself that he simply needed to know she truly cared about their child, but intention cannot wash away the stain of deception. Each replay of her recorded words reminded both of them that love can sour into suspicion when we choose secrecy over conversation. I spent sleepless nights wrestling with the question of whether I should have refused his plea, whether protecting his feelings justified trampling hers. Rebuilding what was broken would demand more than apologies. It would require radical transparency. They needed to dismantle every hidden agenda and replace it with voluntary openness, sharing phone passwords and calendar entries until the ghosts of old betrayals faded. I encouraged them to seek counseling not just as a courtesy, but as a necessity to learn how to erect healthy boundaries that honor each person's right to privacy and to practice the art of honest dialogue without fear of judgment. In the days that followed, as I sorted through my own guilt, I realized that privacy isn't a luxury reserved only for the suspicious or the guilty. It's the oxygen that sustains every relationship. When we strip it away in the name of love, we end up choking the very bond we hope to nourish. Now, I hold that lesson close. If caring for someone means denying them their autonomy, then my version of protection has become a prison. We cannot build trust on the shaky ground of surveillance, only on the solid foundation of consent and openness. Though I cannot undo the recording or erase the pain that followed, I can commit myself to fostering honesty in every relationship I hold dear, because true protection comes not from secret recordings, but from the courage to keep our loved ones safe in the light of mutual respect. In the quiet aftermath of Secrets Unveiled, I learned that love's greatest power isn't our ability to protect someone at all costs, but our willingness to honor their right to privacy. When trust shatters under the weight of clandestine recordings, the road back to each other demands honesty sharper than any knife. If there's one truth I carry with me now, it's this: safeguarding loved ones should never mean sacrificing the very respect that holds a relationship together. Privacy and consent are not optional extras, they are the bedrock of genuine connection. If my story reminds you that protecting someone and spying on them are worlds apart, please share your experience in the comments below. Your voice could light the way for someone struggling between fear and faith. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life tales of friendships tested by betrayal and the hard lessons of rebuilding trust. Hit the bell so you won't miss our next episode, where we'll explore how to set healthy boundaries without cutting off the people we cherish most. Remember, real protection lives in the open, and healing begins when we choose respect over secrecy.